Hey, it's Liz. How you doing today? We're going to continue our series of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. We're in book one. We finished verse, I believe, 17 last time. I want to go over it again briefly. Now I'm looking at the translation by Desikachar. Desikachar wrote a book called The Heart of Yoga, Developing a Personal Practice. Now, Desikachar's father was the great Krishnamacharya, who is the father of Ashtanga Yoga. He was a great healer and guru and yoga teacher, so forth. Very powerful person. He studied Sanskrit and he also studied Vedic theology a great deal. He had many famous students. Iyengar was his student. Indra Devi was his student. These are yoga teachers that came to the West to teach us. Also, Baron Baptiste was his student. And it was a student of Baron Baptiste that developed core power yoga. And that's the lineage I'm in. And so I'm looking at the back of the Heart of Yoga book. I highly recommend it if you're interested in the idea of yoga, developing a practice, and the meditation parts of it. Remember, in the Sutras by Patanjali, or the group of people now known as Patanjali, that it's not even about the asanas or the poses. In fact, they used to, as I said, they used to prescribe poses for people with challenges. They didn't just get down and do yoga. The word asana means seating, or seat in a seated posture, or sitting, basically sitting in meditation. So let's read verse 17 from his translation. Then the object is gradually understood fully. At first, it is at a more superficial level. In time, comprehension becomes deeper. And finally, it is total. There is pure joy in reaching such a depth of understanding. For then the individual is so much more at one with the object that he is oblivious to his surroundings. Object here meaning the asana or the pose, meaning the thing you're focusing on, your goal, your visualization, your meditation. It's only possible in a state of yoga. A lot of us, it's very easy for us to understand the superficial things of life and the obvious things like doing an up dog or a down dog. Yeah, you can get into the position. Yeah, it's great for flexibility. It's great for strengthening. People come to yoga from the fitness world often because they hear it's good for rehab. It's good for fitness. It's good for flexibility. But really, it has a different purpose. I mean, we're fine to receive people coming from these traditions and stuff. It's great. But we hope that they develop a yogic philosophy or lifestyle or practice. Okay, I think it's for the best. But as I said, that daily practice of the meditation or the good work or the process or the affirmations, again, the clean eating or the workout, the movement, the sleep hygiene, whatever it is you're working on, all pieces of the pie, your income, your work, your life, your love relationships, that daily process is what gets you to the goal. Verse 18 says, when you reach to the permanent state or somewhat permanent state of yoga, the usual mental disturbances are absent. However, memories of the past continue. The sutra says, however, memories of the past continue. What I mean is to say, or what I think it means is, sometimes those pain points of memories that we don't like are lessons for us, and they help us in our current day-to-day life to not make that mistake again or to correct something. A friend of mine recently went through TSA and no longer had pre-check, and her friends had pre-check. And so they were at the bar and they'd already completed a drink before she even got there as she went through the cattle herd that was the non-TSA pre-check. Not to be a snob, but, for $78 for 5 years, you can get your TSA pre-check. And so people do pay for that service. So she was learning from that pain point of the suffering of waiting another half an hour in line, is maybe she might go do a TSA pre-check. So she's learning from that memory of like, I missed having a drink with my friends. But just an example of, you can use those memories as learning and training, but you don't have to dwell on them to cause you pain. Verse 19 says, there will be some who are born in a state of yoga. They need not practice or discipline themselves. I'm not one of them. But I would say when you meet someone like this, it's good to get some wisdom from them, to learn from them, to perhaps sit at their feet for a little while, but don't keep this person as a guru for very long. Sometimes these people can fall from a state of their princedom, or you can, go down the path of focusing on a guru too much and worshiping them too much. They could succumb to worldly influences. You should become your own guru. But it's great to learn from them. And there was that book, right, called If You Meet the Buddha on the Road, Kill Him. You kind of like, don't focus too much on a guru or a wisdom teacher. Get some wisdom, some coaching, and then move on and become your own. Go inside and get your own wisdom. Verse 20 says, through faith, though, for the rest of us, Through faith, which will give sufficient energy to achieve success against all odds, direction will be maintained. The realization of the goal of yoga is a matter of time. So your ability to focus on your daily practice, on your goal, on your meditation, it will result in, over time, a clear and correct understanding of the object, of whatever your focus is. And you develop this faith that you can achieve that goal. You have an unshakable conviction you can get it. So, and we're not to be lulled by, success, the excitement of success, or the distraction or discouragement by failure. We just move on. You work hard and steadily with your daily work through all distractions, whether they're wonderful or they're challenging. Okay. Verse 21 says, the more intense the faith and the effort, the closer the goal. That says it right there. No explanation. The more you do the process, the more you have faith, the better you'll get there and the sooner. Verse 22 says, inevitably, the depth of faith varies with different individuals and at different times with the same individual. The results will reflect these variations. So depending on your practice and your scope of practice and your hardness, your work at it, your steadfast work at it, as we saw in verse 21, as well as your cultural background, your family, your genetics, the school system, your various personal tendencies, you'll have varying results, but you will get there. Verse 23 says, Patanjali recognizes that attempts to change our state of mind to yoga are fraught with obstacles that vary in potency. I call that the paradigm. When you try to become successful, the paradigm loves to trap you, take you down. It doesn't want you to be successful because that's scary. But he says, but for those who have either an inborn faith in God or who are able to develop it over the years, the sutra says, offering regular prayers to God with a feeling of submission to his power surely enables the state of yoga to be achieved. So what's the definition of God? Verse 24 says, God is the supreme being whose actions are never based on misapprehension. And verse 25 says, he knows everything there is to be known. Verse 26 says, God is eternal. In fact, he, she, it, whatever you want to call it, is the ultimate teacher. He is the source of guidance for all teachers, past, present, and future. Verse 27 says, how should we refer to God? How should we address him? In the way most appropriate to the qualities of God. And it is here in the sutras that we hear to intone Om. Om. It's not here in Desikachar's work, but this is where you find it, where we first see the practice of Om. It might be in the Upanishads or the Vedas, I don't remember, but this is here where I first encountered it. Verse 28 says, in order to relate to God, it is necessary to regularly address him properly and reflect on his qualities. Patanjali suggests that it's necessary to reflect constantly on the qualities of God. This is why the Hindus, folks of the South Asian religions, actually have different gods, if you will. They're really more like angels or saints. They're actually aspects of the divine. So if you want to look into love, you might study Rama. If you want to study the cycles of life, the destruction of life, you might Shiva or Durga or Kali. If you want the source of all energy in the world, it might be Vishnu or Krishna. But they're all part of Brahma. They're all part of the one God. They're not really, the Hindu religions are not actually paganism. So you might have a repeated intonation of his name, like Om, or with different gods that you worship, God, Jesus, whomever. And you might use prayer, contemplation, meditation. But, our prayer and our worship and our mantras and our Oms shouldn't be, mechanical. Even Jesus says it. Don't just recite it in a closet. Just don't recite it mindlessly. Have it have meaning, using your conscious thought and your devotion and your feeling and your consideration with profound respect. Verse 29 says, the individual will in time perceive his true nature. He will not be disturbed by any interruption that may arise in his journey to the state of yoga. That state of yoga, remember, meaning union with your divine self. And verse 30 says, there are 9 types of interruptions to developing mental clarity. And these are illness, mental stagnation, doubts, lack of foresight, fatigue, overindulgence, illusions about one's true state of mind, lack of perseverance, and regression. They are obstacles because they create mental disturbances and encourage distractions. And Desikachar says, the more we are vulnerable to these interruptions, the more difficult it is to reach a state of yoga. Now, as we proceed next week, we'll talk about the different states. And here's where we get into the yamas and niyamas that we talk about in yoga philosophy. Anyway, take care, y'all, and I will talk to you soon.